to create content that challenges expectations.
It's really about how you use the art to really evoke a feeling.
We just cannot understand the effect that having a bed can be for someone.
Today on Spotlight, a group giving the gift of a good night's sleep by building beds. Plus, science and espionage. We'll talk to the author of Atomic Love. And then the local company that won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. But first, women in comics meet a cartoonist who draws for the Post-Dispatch. It's Sunday and you're watching Spotlight.
I always say that the best way to learn how to draw a comic is to draw a comic. When I started drawing, I was reading a lot of webcomics, and I wanted to do my own webcomic as well. There are so many different kinds of comics that the comics industry is really a lot bigger than just the part that most people see. A lot of people assume that the comic book industry is really male-dominated, but if you are a part of the industry, you can see that it is very much 50-50, if not more, leaning towards women. And that's one of the things that really inspired me. So with Elements Fire, I got to decide what they looked like and their mannerisms and how they interact with others. And I decided that I wanted, everyone in there to be a person of color because white people aren't the only people that have adventures. And I see so many stories that involve people of color, and it's always about the struggle, having to deal with racism, and it's like, that's really not all that we deal with. I really focus on trying to create a story and a character from their body movements, what kind of clothes they wear. I just try and pick a little bit of what is in their universe that makes them who they are. The original creator of Heart of the City, Mark Tatuli, was retiring. They wanted to continue, but also change it so that it was more for a readership for today, a more modern audience. Now I do Heart of the City full-time, and that is a daily comic that you can get in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I know with Heart in particular, she's precocious and rambunctious, and I wanted to find a way to take that, because when Mark was doing it, she was a little girl, 6 or 7, but take that and move it into the middle school area. What happens when you take that aggressive kind of personality and put it in middle school? How do people react to it? How does she think about not just her relationship with her best friend, but her best friend's relationship with their other best friend, and what does her living space look like, and living with her mom, being a single mother. So I really just have to kind of imagine who is this person and what in their life makes them who they are, and try and get that across in 4 panels. So I have to really try and find a way to take an idea and simplify it down enough so that it can be on the page, but also clear enough that people understand what that is. And that's really what cartooning is about. It's about taking something big, an idea, and making it a lot clearer. The idea of being nervous, of being anxious, is kind of a big idea, but what are some of the things that you do when you're nervous? Do you bite your nails? Do you sweat? Do you look to the left or to the right? And so you have to pick, well, which one of those works better for this scene? So let's say I'm doing a strip for Heart of the City. I actually write all of the Heart of the City stories months and months ahead of time, so that when I'm actually drawing them, I'm just pulling from stuff that I've already written. Then I'll do these roughs. So they're basically just really messy ideas of what's going to go on the strip. They're basically just placements, those roughs. The inks is really my favorite part because it's really more of solidifying the pencils that you've already done. You really want to get something that you see in your mind, but getting on paper, it's difficult. I think you can tell stories with all different kinds of art styles, and it's really about how you use the art to really evoke a feeling or get an idea across. I like to think that I pick and pull from all kinds of people, you know? So the way I draw eyes comes from some person, or the way I color comes from another, you know? So I think it just kind of is an amalgamation of all the things that I'm interested in. I can't think of any comic creator that doesn't want there to be comics 70 years from now, you know? And so if we want that to happen, we have to make sure that the landscape is good enough for everyone else to come into. And so that's what I hope that I'm doing.
Follow HEC Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is what's known as Build Day. 8 years ago, Steve McLean heard about a unique volunteer opportunity where he could put his woodworking skills to good use.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace is an organization that makes beds for kids, simply put.
But there was a problem. The nearest chapter was in Kansas City.
And I thought, gosh darn it, why aren't there somebody here in St. Louis with a chapter? And as soon as I said that, I thought, actually, why don't I start a chapter here in St. Louis?
He enlisted the help of fellow members at Arlington United Methodist Church in Bridgeton. The need in the St. Louis region is great. Roughly 26,000 children do not have beds.
We just cannot understand the effect that having a bed can be for someone in their rest, in their psychology, any of those things. They develop better when they have basic comforts, basic needs met. And so we have communities where they don't have beds. Children do not have beds. We get to tangibly give them these things. We get to be a part of that.
I really enjoy it.
Volunteer Terry Lasico has been part of several builds.
It's a good thing for me to get out and feel like I'm participating in something important for my community.
The best part, she says, is delivering the beds.
I admire the fact that people are out there struggling to do everything they can to make things work and have the bravery to call them and say, I need a hand. So if I could be the hand, I want to be the hand.
And on a cool, crisp fall afternoon, a connection as volunteers arrive at this North County home.
I was so happy. I was so excited.
Hannah Jones called Sleep in Heavenly Peace asking for bunk beds for her older children, ages 11, 7, and 4-year-old twins. The kids had all been sleeping together on a mattress on the floor.
They stayed up later because they're fighting because they're touching each other, which made them be cranky in the mornings.
Volunteers came in and put the bunks together. The new beds included new mattresses, sheets, pillows, and comforters for the little ones. Hannah surprised her children later that day and shared video of their excitement.
Do you like that bed? Say thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody, to the organization, to the volunteers for coming to put the beds together, for helping me help them. We appreciate it.
It's the smiling faces of both parents and children that keep volunteers motivated. Between the Alton and St. Louis chapters, hundreds of children have new beds. Both groups recently took part in Bunks Across America, a national drive to build more than 5,000 new beds.
We do not require any experience.
Organizers say any adult and older child can volunteer. On this day, volunteers from the Way Church in Wentzville helped with the build.
One of the nice things about the way they set up the builds is they break it down into very simple tasks. We can show you what you need to do in about 5 minutes, and the experience level goes from people that actually do construction and woodworking down to people who've never picked up a drill before.
Companies, churches, and other groups can sponsor a build and provide volunteers as well. Right now there's a waiting list of about 50 beds.
We have delivered to kids that don't even know what a bed is. We were hauling stuff into their homes, and they thought they were going to get a mattress to lay on the floor. That was to them what bed was. They had no idea what the wood was for, what all the pillows and all that. They didn't know. And so the excitement that you see on their faces and the relief you see on the parents' faces is very rewarding. And that's really why we do this, is for the kids.
When people receive the things that they need, they grow. They grow physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything. It's better. And so being able to do something like this tangible act of, hey, here, it just helps exponentially in ways that I think we don't even find out until later when these young children have grown.
You just never know where that spark is going to come from.
We're putting a human touch to everything through the vehicle of art.
We give them the ability to hope.
Chicago, 1950. Brilliant physicist Rosalind Porter breaks gender barriers at the Manhattan Project's metallurgic lab. Then, in the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, she finds herself in a web of intrigue and passion, while still dealing with guilt about her role in the production of the bomb.
Silence and secrets are always interesting.
We spoke to Jenny about the writing life and about her new novel of love, desire, and betrayal.
Your main character of Rosalind is a really interesting person. In 1950, to be a scientist, and before that, even in the late 40s, she would have been a scientist working in a very male-dominated field. How did you decide to write that?
A few things came together that made me want to write this book. One was that my mother was a scientist in the late 40s, and she gave up science to marry, which was very common then. After the war, men came back, they needed jobs, women were not encouraged to work, and she regretted that decision the rest of her life. And she lived her life as though she were a scientist, only she was mixing, cleaning chemicals, and she was like cooking as though she were a scientist. And so that was one thing. I wanted to write about a female scientist at a time when there really weren't very many female scientists. And then I also wanted to write about the Manhattan Project. This came to me because my mother went to the University of Chicago, and her best friend was her cousin who worked in this Met lab, is what they called it. And she would not tell my mother anything about what she was doing. And my mother just didn't understand why this was so secretive. And she didn't find out till years later that she'd been working on the Manhattan Project. I think she was a clerical worker, but it was something that they were just sworn to secrecy. And so that always fascinated me.
Did you have to do a lot of research?
I had to read about the making of the atomic bomb. I read a memoir by a woman named Leona Woods, who was the only female scientist on that project, the only female physicist. And she was just like Rosalind, young. She was a mentee of Enrico Fermi. She was very well thought of, but she was the only woman, and she was the youngest member of the team, which I just love that. Another thing I always do when I research another era is I read a lot of magazines and a lot of newspapers, because they tell you so much about the attitudes of the era, the clothes and the prices and what people desired, what they wanted to be like.
I want to circle back to you talking about being a single mother with children, working full-time and writing. What was that like?
It was very intense. Thank heavens I had a lot of energy back then, which I don't have that much now. But, I remember getting up at 6:10 every morning so I could walk my daughter to school. And I'm not an early bird, to say the least, but, it gave me time to, get her dressed, feed her, get her to school. Then I would come back, drop the dog off, and go grab a train into Manhattan, where I would be a creative director in advertising all day. And you probably know that's a pretty intense job, and then I would come home. I always tried, if I could, to have dinner with my daughter. And then I would put her, I'd spend time with her. I'd put her to bed. And after that, I worked out, because you have to do something that's going to keep you alive. So I worked out for an hour and 15 minutes, and then I wrote. So I usually didn't write until 10:30, 11 p.m. and I wrote till like 1. And it was the only way that I would get time to write, and it mattered to me. And I'm sure I was very slow at getting books out because of that, but at least I was writing. And that, it's always been my love to write. So it pushed me forward and it made me happy to have that time.
Well, Jenny Fields, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a great pleasure to talk to you about your new book, Atomic Love.
Text Fields to 31996 to watch the full interview and find out the one thing she said she did that made her writing career blossom. You can also download our Talking with Authors podcast.
HEC Media presents Talking with Authors, the podcast. Your favorite writers and genres, with diverse subjects and styles, with new podcasts dropping bi-weekly. Subscribe to Talking with Authors wherever you get your podcasts.
A first generation of COVID-19 vaccines is expected to gain approval, but more are coming. More, and some say better.
It may take some time for the best to emerge.
Among the next generation of vaccines, a nasal spray, not an injection. At Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, researchers in this laboratory developed a nasal vaccine that's now produced by academic spin-off company Precision Virologics.
You lean your head back and take a spray, so it's quite easy.
Professor of Radiation Oncology, Dr. David Curiel, is the interim CEO of Precision Virologics. The startup is supported by BioGenerator, the investment arm of BioSTL. Dr. Curiel's COVID-19 vaccine would be delivered in one dose through the nose.
That made it superior to the other vaccines that required multiple doses, but more importantly, it sterilized the upper respiratory tract. So it appeared to have a better ability to provide immunity at the sites relevant to infection. Importantly, this latter finding may be relevant to preventing the spread of the virus. And that's what's so important in a pandemic agent like this.
To develop the vaccine, they use the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein that the virus uses to invade cells. They insert it into another virus called an adenovirus.
The adenovirus is a common cold virus. I've worked on adenovirus for 30 years. I'm the most published, the most cited author in this virus. I'm the biggest fan of this virus, and I knew its attributes.
Curiel says his vaccine is successful in mice when other adenovirus vaccines are not. He is using a version of the adenovirus that infects chimpanzees because many people have immunity to the human adenovirus.
It's a simian adenovirus from a chimpanzee. It has a stabilized antigen that elicits higher levels of immunity, and it's given by the intranasal routes.
In mice, the research shows how the nasal delivery route creates a more widespread immune response than an injection. It destroys any coronavirus already present. It prevents infection in the nose and lungs. The research suggests that vaccinated individuals would not develop infections elsewhere in the body or spread the virus to others.
Sterilize the upper respiratory tract, which was distinct from the other vaccines, may be important to prevent lateral transmission of the virus, which is so problematic in a pandemic.
Precision Virologics and vaccine manufacturer Bharat Biotech in India obtained rights for this novel chimp adenovirus vaccine for COVID-19. Precision plans to use St. Louis University's Vaccine and Treatment Evaluation Unit to conduct phase 1 trials. The hope is for the vaccine to be widely available by late next year. You can find the full story about the nasal vaccine development and the outlook for clinical trials on our website, hecmedia.org.
A special tribute to Kim Massie later on Spotlight.
Look out, Hollywood. There's a new lion in town. Though it's not really in your town. It's in ours. Lion Forge Animation, producers of 2020's Academy Award winner for Best Animated Short, is headquartered in St. Louis. How did you guys end up in St. Louis doing Hollywood stuff?
Well, we're from St. Louis, so, born and raised, and...
So John Hamm, but he had to go to Hollywood to be a star.
True.
Their Oscar-winning short film is called Hair Love, the story of an African-American father learning to style his daughter's very uncooperative hair. It is as emotional as it is charming. And it is also emblematic of Lion Forge's desire to infuse the world of animation with diversity and inclusivity. You guys have a sort of a higher purpose in this.
Definitely. Our formal mission statement is we want to create content that challenges expectations and reflects the diversity of our audience.
Lion Forge Animation began in St. Louis as a digital comic book company, featuring the new kinds of protagonists they now want to bring to the screen.
This goes back when we started the company. Our motto was comics for everyone, when we're in the comics business. And that was about, having a wide variety of different subject matters and wide variety of different portrayals, in our comics and making sure that it was done in an authentic way. And that means having diverse creators.
Anything new nowadays is rare. They say there's only so many stories and they repeat over and over, but the difference is perspective.
Lion Forge uses artists who live and work all over the world, but all the planning and pre-production happens in St. Louis. And they believe their Middle American roots give Lion Forge a competitive advantage.
If you're in LA or in New York, you're kind of in a bubble of sorts. For us, from a creative standpoint, this is the best place to be because, we know kind of what, the rest of the country really wants.
Lion Forge is the largest Black-owned animation studio in the United States, and it is coming into its own at a time when box office hits like Black Panther and Get Out are proving to Hollywood that a lot of green can be made by films with major Black characters. Now, with the Motion Picture Academy announcing new diversity standards for Best Picture eligibility, questions about inclusivity in Hollywood films are coming into sharper focus.
The intention is 100% in the right direction, and it's really needed. They put off those guidelines for many years. So in the beginning of a film, when you're putting that film together, just say, hey, maybe we should have some other voices on at the table.
Which is exactly what Lion Forge has been doing from the start. And with new projects in progress all over the world, Lion Forge is definitely on a roar.
I think you'll be full of surprises in terms of things that we'll be coming up with in the future.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
Okay, all right. Good choice. One of my favorite Aretha's. Ain't no way for me to love you if you won't let me. It ain't no way for me to give you all you need. A woman's duty is to help and love a man, and that's the way it was planned. Oh.
You appear in small places singing the blues and big places singing jazz. And you've done so many wonderful shows where you have a chance to pay tribute to some of your favorites.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those.
Well, some of my favorites are Aretha Franklin. I remember as young as 10, 11 years old, listening to her songs. My father waking us up in the morning when he come in from work, playing Aretha Franklin songs. And I've always admired her talent. And also Whitney Houston, Anita Baker.
Ain't no way, baby. It ain't no way. Hey, hey, hey. If you won't let me. Stop trying to be someone you're not. For hard, cold, and cruel is a man who paid too much for what he's got. And if you need me to love you, say you do. Oh, my baby, don't you know that I love? Oh, ain't no way.
When did you start to become an entertainer in a professional way?
When I came back to St. Louis, I came back here in 1999. I was born here but raised in Lorain, Ohio, just close to Cleveland. And once I came back here in 99, things just seemed to just click. I was in the right place to do what I do.
For me to love you, if you won't let me.
One show isn't all blues or all jazz or all rhythm and blues. You mix it all within the same show. Would you put yourself into a blues category, or are you like Duke Ellington, who refuses to be put into any category?
Exactly. I am a songstress.
And an entertainer.
Entertainer. Thank you so much.
Let me. Thank you very much.
Next week, a new exhibit featuring 3 female artists and the myths that connect them. Plus, a Robin Williams biography about his life, career, and more. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.